Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, it's those little touches that can put you over the top, and if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more, as always. My name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things, and I mean, you're listening to us right now, I'm assuming that you do, you can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google. It's all good. Basically, wherever you get your podcasts. And plus, you can find every single one of our episodes archived over at our YouTube channel. Also, it'd be great if you'd follow us on social media. You can do that on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at either In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please check us out over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest in movie reviews, TV news, lists, anything we can think of, talking festivals, video on demand, basically anything and everything to do with the moving image, because quite frankly, we kind of love the moving image, and we love talking about it, and we love it when you come pay us a visit. Now, on this episode, we got something good, because it's, for those of you who don't know, it is the CAFTCAD Awards tonight. It is, it's the Canadian Association of Costumers, and it's a fantastic organization. They've been going for 10 years. And their awards ceremony is going to be online tonight on their website or on YouTube. But you can find out more if you go to the CAFTCAD Awards.com, which is CAFTCAD Awards.com. It is, like I said, it is the Canadian Alliance of Film and Television Costume Arts and Design, and they are giving out a bunch of awards tonight online. And if you want something to do, if you like your award shows, I do recommend you check it out, because you'll learn a little bit about costuming as well, which is an important thing, especially when it comes to the moving image and it comes to the shows and the programs that we love so much. And we got the distinct pleasure in advance of this to sit down with actually a nominee tonight who has won in the past, and she's hoping to win again tonight, and her name is Dixon. She's worked on shows like Song of Names, and she's nominated for The Comey Rule, which shot up here way back when. And we talked with her just about sort of not only the importance of costuming, but sort of those little nuances that help the actor and help sort of enhance the performance and sort of enhance the overall look of the show. And I mean, it's such an important part of the process that does not always get the respect it deserves, but it's one of those things where we get to see all the little touches that help bring someone's performance or help bring someone's look in a film go that much farther. It's a fascinating process and an important one too, but like I said, if you want to learn more, I'd definitely go check out the CAFTCAD Awards, CAFTCADAwards.com. It's tonight on their YouTube channel and on their website, and I believe on Facebook as well, but we will have everything posted in the link below. But hope you enjoy our talk with Anne, because I certainly know that I did. No, I mean, I guess my first question is, because, I mean, the thing I love about the CAFTCAD Awards is that it's one of these things that is shining a light on the fact that, to make anything in the visual medium for storytelling, it takes a village. But it always feels like costuming kind of gets forgotten about. But I'm curious, what's the career path to sort of work in costume in film? Because I'm always really curious about sort of the origin stories of how people sort of get started and get into the business.
Oh, there's many paths, many different ways to get into the film business of costume designing. Mine, I worked in theater for a few years and started as a seamstress, then was a cutter, did some dyeing, did some millinery, was an assistant costume designer. Then I would design a number of shows. I was like a gypsy, and with my little Honda Civic as my caravan going across the country and going from one show to the other. Then I happened to actually do a skating special to help out as an assistant on Lake Louise between Christmas and New Year's. Someone couldn't go, so I was called in, and it was the Brian Bottano and Brian Orser skating special. And that's when I got a taste of how much bigger story could be told to many more people than in theater. And I got the bug. And that's how I kind of moved into that genre of costume designing.
And I mean, that kind of dovetails into something I always wanted to ask, because when it comes to costume designing, on one end, if it's a period piece or some sort of fantasy thing or science fiction, okay, it feels kind of obvious. But at the same time, if you're doing something like what you were nominated for Comey Rule, I'm curious where the levels of creativity coming in, because basically you're working in a world where everyone's wearing suits.
Yes, people that we had to recreate, and then it's doing massive research to really get the essence, because you only have a few seconds for certain characters. You have some that are explored a bit longer in it, but you have to know what in that quick take, which person, what's the most that symbolizes that politician or whomever we were trying to do, and then you work from that. Then depending on what the color of the lenses and the mood and the sets, then you choose your fabrics, you choose the ties. I mean, the ties were like to try and get the right width and everything. Like we had them like up from all over the world. We gathered and bought some. The suits, again, to get the cut of all of it and to really feel, because it's kind of like a uniform, but it has to be precise. We bespoke and tailored all of them. We made, even just for the background, I think we had over 600 suits made just for the background. So it's a different approach when you're trying to recreate something than to create something from scratch. But there's an awful lot of different nuances that you choose and you tailor towards that.
Well, and I mean, I love that you say that, because I mean, it really does boil down to even something very much as simple as, because you're dealing with, real characters. If on one day you're shooting something where James Comey is having a bad day, he might not pick the flashiest tie. And I mean, and that's the kind of thing that has to go into the whole process, which really from the outside looking in, I don't necessarily think gets enough appreciation, if that makes a lot of sense.
It depends. I mean, I think that the harder thing to do is actually contemporary, because people think, well, I get dressed every day. I mean, how easy is that? But there's a difference between that and a character, because for instance, when you design, you're creating characters, you're trying to help the story. So even if it's a real person, you're trying to propel the story forward, and making choices to either heighten it or lessen the beat of the story. And when people think, well, it's just my own clothes. But if, for instance, like it's not fashion, it still is a costume, because fashion, for instance, on a catwalk, you have all the models and they all look the same, but it's the clothes that stand out. Then in a story, it's not the clothes that stand out, it's the actual person, the character that you want to stand out. So you have to work within that to try and lift that up and lift him or her up. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. It does. And I mean, I'm kind of curious. And I mean, especially when you're going from job to job, I'm like, what are I can imagine they're different every time, but like, what are the kind of creative challenges that you see along the way when you're especially when you're getting into like a new show where you're playing a big part in crafting a new universe entirely?
I love it. I mean, I think it keeps, what I love is that I personally try not to pigeonhole myself and do the same genre all the time, because I find to keep your creativity, to keep you nimble, it's really wonderful to be able to do a contemporary show, to then go do a period show, to then go do a reality show or a physical show, whether it be a skating or dancing. And because it all starts off the same from the script, but your design process is varied, and I find that you stretch yourself and you learn all the time.
Mm-hmm.
In every project, it doesn't matter what kind of project it is. So you're always exploring, and that's fascinating.
Are there ones where, I mean, I'm always kind of curious about sort of, I guess, the day-to-day input that you get in terms of when you're working on costume, because obviously producers and directors will come to you with a vision, but how much room sort of in what they want do you get to play around a bit? Because I can imagine you'll have shoots that might be a little limiting and you have to get creative, and then there'll be some where you've got a blank canvas and you can do what you want.
Well, it's a teamwork, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we all get into this because it's a collaboration, and we're all there for the director's vision of what the film, the show, the series is. And his main creative team is the DOP, the production designer, and the costume designer. And within the three of us, we have a lot of discussions. There's an awful lot of exploration, and we come to a tone, to a kind of structure within that. And then my part, then I then go and dissect each character, and depending of how they fit into the storyline, then I have another discussion very in depth with the director, and then I will by then have some boards, some research, some ideas, some thoughts. And I always find that it's easier to have a visual, because then you can say, no, I don't like this. Yes, I like this. And it becomes a shorthand of trying to figure out what's in his head, what vision is he seeing. And so then we work within that, and then comes the actor, because the actor is privy to only his part, but I have an overview of what the whole film and everyone else is going to be. And then and then they have some input and some thoughts as well that they'll bring to the board, and it's working all together in hopefully creating something pretty magical in the end.
It almost feels in many ways like your job can be a bit of a mediator between the actor and the director. I can imagine that would make for some sort of interesting war stories along the way, just in terms of trying to find the right balance.
Absolutely. Sometimes I think sometimes we're psychologists, you know what I mean? It's like, where's the bed? Where's the couch for them to kind of lie down, and let's see, what are your issues? And the thing is that because the actors are so vulnerable, they put themselves in such a vulnerable place, that and we get very close to them. So we will understand very much how their process and their feelings, and it's trying to incorporate all that and giving them confidence in their character, and to be able to deliver the line, deliver the emotions, and really nail it. And I always say it's kind of like the shoes, like if like if you're walking on a daily basis and your shoes are pinching you, you can't think anything else but your darn shoes that are too tight. And if the actor isn't comfortable in his costume, then he can never deliver that extra little bit that's behind the eye when the camera comes close that can totally engross you into the scene. And that's what you want. So it's a collaboration all the time.
Now, I mean, as a fan, like as a film fan in general, but just as a fan of sort of design and image, I mean, I think I particularly like the work that you did on Song of Names, which you love for, because I mean, it was contemporary, but there is also that cultural shift as well that you're trying to blend together. And I'm kind of curious when you're doing something like that, because it's such a subtle variation on a theme, like how sort of, I guess, how big does research come into sort of being able to get all the right nuances right and not make it feel forced and make everything feel natural?
Um, I mean, to me, I always find that the more research you can do, the better you have an understanding of the silhouette, of the proportions, of the textures, of the color waves of then that was prominent. And then when you have to make a choice, because the bodies are different, the shapes of the bodies, the human body are different now than they were 40 years ago. And it's not the same proportions, but you can make choices that will give you an idea and a flair of where time-wise you're situated. And the more knowledge you have, the better you can make it seamlessly afterwards.
No, that makes total sense.
And it's like, and like some of the touches that I just find that I like to go even the extra length, for instance, in and it should be always subtle because the audience should know that it's like, oh my God, what was that thing? Because then the story's lost. It should, just keep propelling again. But for instance, like on Anne with an E, I mean, it was, we wanted to make sure that it was in the Maritimes and what is and it was rural and it was people from there. So to me, it was really important to try and get that pulse, to get that rawness of that. And for instance, like the schoolyard, I mean, I got influenced by, I researched wildflowers of color tone of all the girls' dresses and the boys, and in dyeing and over dyeing it and getting into that color. Even the Kaplans, the straw of the hats, the boater hats that we made, the same thing. Do you know what I mean? And it's just all that subtlety in there. The average person looking at it wouldn't know, but there's a depth to it. It's not flat.
No, for sure. And I mean, it's one of those things where I'm always kind of fascinated by, because I mean, the general public will not always give costuming sort of the deserved reverence it should have, especially when it comes to story. Because I think of something like recent, I don't know if you've seen it, but the Nicole Kidman show, The Undoing, as she's walking around New York in this amazing coat. Everyone's just talking about the coat, but they're not talking about what the coat does for the character. And I'm kind of curious, from your perspective, how do you know, or at least what should audiences almost look for, like to know when to notice costume and to know when to not notice costume, if that makes any sense?
I hear what you're saying. I think it should be a conscious statement that you want to do, but that it was a discussion with your director and everyone that this is something that I haven't seen The Undoing yet. It's on my list of binge watching for these during COVID time. They probably wanted her to stand out within the crowd of her going through. So that would have been a conscious decision to design something or make something or get something that would actually pop a bit, whether it be the shape, whether it be the color, the texture, the sheen of it, all depends on how it was going to be lit and some previous discussions before that.
Now I'm curious because, I mean, and like I said, from a costuming standpoint, like the general public may not necessarily appreciate it to the level that maybe people in the industry would, but having the CAFTCAD Awards feels like it's sort of presenting a bit of a bridge to sort of open up audiences to sort of not just the importance of costuming, but just sort of to the real understanding of how big a village it really takes to be able to tell these stories in sort of any kind of form.
Absolutely. I mean, CAFCAD is fantastic. Just I mean, I've been part of the foundation at the very beginning, but the awards, even more so, is great to celebrate our community and all of its nuances and all of the different people that it takes to just in the costume department to get a show up and going, to get it done. And it just shows that there's many facets to it, and it's a complete collaboration. And what is wonderful is that it's not just the designers that are being awarded prizes, it's also the makers, the breakdown artists, the illustrators, I mean, it goes on, and which is really, really, truly wonderful, because it is, you know, a lot of people, and I couldn't do what I do without all of them, and neither could anyone else, and that's the beauty of it.
Is for you, is that sort of maybe the driving importance of the job? Because I mean, even as you said before, you try to mix it up. You don't want to necessarily get pigeonholed into doing one type of show. You want to do multiple kinds of shows. For people looking at the industry as a whole, or even people trying to get into the industry, do you think it's important to try to sort of actively vary yourself as much as possible?
It's good to be versatile, absolutely, because waves of shows will come in and out. It's not a 9 to 5 job. It's not a 365 days. You are a freelancer. All of us are. And you have to keep your skills attuned. You have to keep your skills, upgrade them consistently, learn there's new techniques, there's new, I mean, now with 3D printing, I mean, that's gone into a whole different other level. And we have these incredible jewelers that are now, we can recreate or make our designs, and they make them now, and it's phenomenal. It's the same as, let's say, for the Comey rule. Elise made us cufflinks like Trump had these cufflinks, and that he wears all the time, these square diamond ones, and she made them for us. She made some earrings that were for Holly Hunter. It's so all of those skills, it's a complete upgrade all the time. The same as like with the illustrators. I mean, I started off with pen and paper and watercolors and so forth, and now it's predominantly it's digital, and there's new software that comes up all the time. So it's good to really upgrade yourself consistently, because we move forward as well. It's not a stagnant craft, and for someone coming into or wanting to come into, I just think you have to have a passion. You have to love costumes. You have to love textures and textiles. And then, you know, one experience can lead on to a different type of experience. And it's all a journey that's pretty fantastical and amazing.
For you, is there a dream job or a sort of a white whale of a genre that you want to work in? Because I mean, I can imagine, I mean, and just by talking to you, like on one end, there would be a lot of creative freedom in working in something new and fresh, but just hearing you talk about the cufflinks was so fascinating. And it's such a small little detail that just add that extra little bit to the character and to the moment that is so special that I'm curious from your perspective, is it the new challenges, or is it sort of the little challenges inside that, you know, maybe only you would notice or people in the industry would notice that really sort of are the creative satisfaction for you?
I would say both. I mean, it's wonderful to have a totally clean palette, and when you have to even design fabrics and prints and make those and then get it onto, and then cutting them, getting the cutter and working with them and getting three-dimensionally around an actor, and then creating full worlds is, very rewarding. But as much as that is phenomenal when you see the overall thing, what is also incredibly magical is when you're in the fitting room and the actor comes as themselves, as the actor, then you start putting on the costumes, and then all of a sudden the actor leaves the room and he becomes, or she becomes, the character. That's one of the most magical moments you can have. And by getting to that, it's not just the costume, the overall costumes, but it's all those little tiny details that helps the actor, that just layers it in depth, and then it transforms them, and that is magical. And it's often the audience won't know all, like the cufflinks and all those little bits and pieces, but the performer, the actor, will then be able to give you even more so to those scenes because he's completely engrossed into that character.
And, I think that highlights the importance of the awards, because it really does allow for there to be a bit of a spotlight on those little tweaks, which, like you just said, can add so much more to the layers of the performance that the actor is going to give. And it's an important thing. And I just want to say thank you for the time today. And just that this was a lot of fun, and congratulations on your nomination. And thanks again for the time.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure. And it's fantastic. And I love the CAFTCAD Awards. It really is a true celebration for all of us.
You know what? And I mean, you're absolutely right. And it's an important thing that I hope people get to see more of. And again, thank you for the time. This was an absolute delight and fascinating. I learned a lot.
You're welcome. Anytime.
All right. Cheers. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.